All right, welcome back to another episode of Two Plain Sports. Before we get into it, thank you guys for all of the comments, all the liking, subscribing. We really appreciate it. Our channel's grown a lot over the last couple of weeks, and it is awesome to see on our end. And it's great to see that you guys are enjoying the content. So we'll keep it coming. Make sure you continue liking, share your thoughts on what we're putting out there. Leave a comment. Let us know what you think. You know, our opinion isn't always correct, and sometimes we leave something out. So if feel free to correct us or share what you think we're messing up. Tell us we're stupid if you want. Who cares? All right. Well, let's go ahead and get into it. Today we're going to recap the unfortunate Baylor game. I think we came in thinking that the rest was going to be helpful for the Sooners, but it actually seemed to do the opposite. And the team just looked completely lost to start the game, and Baylor took full advantage and never let Oklahoma pretty much move the ball and up until the second quarter, it seems like. But Brum, you want to start off? Let us know what you think.
Yeah, so I mean, honestly, with this game, with the result, I felt like the Sooners have been skating by and just have been talented enough to beat the teams that they've been playing just because they've got better athletes. And not that Baylor has better athletes everywhere, because they don't, but they're just a really well coached team, and it finally caught up to the Sooners. It just seems like, I don't know what it is, if Riley just couldn't get the guys to get motivated. There was a lack of focus. They were just sluggish. It just seemed like it's been the issue all year long. They're just kind of going through the motions, thinking that they're gonna be able to get through the Big 12 no problem. And it finally caught up to them. And it just seems like it's the same thing every single year, that the Sooners always lay at least one egg every season. It just depends on, what time, where they're playing and whatnot. This year, it was really late in the season. In previous years, it's been earlier in the season, and I don't know why. I mean, in a way, it's kind of nice that it's happened now, because it might not let the Sooners get in the playoffs and get, ran out of the arena potentially against Georgia or something like that. I don't know. It was just frustrating to see, because they've got all the talent in the world and they should have beaten Baylor, but they just didn't. And it just seemed like the defense played well for the first half. And then as soon as Baylor made its adjustments and started running the quarterback, Grinch just couldn't adjust. And it's bizarre. What do you think?
Yeah, it seems to be like Oklahoma's Achilles heel is when the quarterback can run at all, and well, we just can't stop it. Also, and we mentioned it before we started recording. One of their players, what was his name? Ebner. Just seemed like he
Ebner.
was running like 10 miles faster than everyone else on the field. That dude touched the ball and he was taking off. He only got 40 yards, and I bet you he probably got like 100, because he's running side to side every time he touched the ball. He was coming from one end of the field to the other, and no one could touch him. And that was probably the most frustrating part. Obviously, the loss is annoying, but the tackling it hasn't been great ever this season, but it seemed like this game was like, you guys, come on, let's get it going. But the a couple of bright spots. Brian Asamoah had a pretty good game. Obviously, like, he can't win the game by himself. It's impossible to win a football game just by having one player have an amazing game. You need the entire unit to do the same. But that's a good thing. He's starting to get into it and perform better. And the defense, honestly, this week it wasn't the defense. Like, we can't say that they let the team down, or that they had to make a play to help win the game at the end. This was I At the end of the game, my initial reaction, and it seemed like almost everyone on Twitter's, was something happened this week with Lincoln Riley and the preparedness of this offense, because from the first drive they were lost. We went like negative 15 yards in the first three plays of the game, I think, something like that. We didn't gain a yard, and it was from the first drive didn't make me feel like we're not going to win, but I definitely thought it was going to be a close game until the end. And then our lack of wanting to run the ball is just going back to what was happening at the beginning of the year when we were playing close games with Tulane. And that's just frustrating because you saw Kennedy Brooks blow up the game when we played Texas. When you finally started feeding him, he went for a career high, scored the game-winning touchdown, and that kind of turned the Sooners, that the attitude, it seemed like, of the offense around to going back to what we're used to in the explosive plays. But then this game, Baylor beat us in time of possession by 11 minutes, roughly. I mean, 24-41, Oklahoma to Baylor's 35-19. And it's because they just ran the ball a ton. They had 47 total carries. Oklahoma had 28. And like, Lincoln isn't willing to adjust his play calling, and he always wants to go for big plays down the field. And that wasn't it. That's not going to be it all game. And this season has kind of shown that teams are figuring out this offense. And if Lincoln and the offensive staff aren't able to adjust and make it a run, kind of like Bill Belichick's offense, make it a run first and then start moving with play action, then this isn't going to, like, this team can't go very far, even if they somehow find a miracle and get in the playoffs. It's just, I wouldn't be very comfortable with saying that we're going to the national championships. I'd probably bet on getting ran out the stadium by whoever we play, probably Georgia.
Yeah, it was really bizarre because it was like a stubbornness with the deep passes, and it just was I don't understand the whole concept of, if you keep throwing deep on first down and it's not working, on the first few times you try it, and then you are stubborn enough to keep going and going and going. And I understand that Baylor's weakness in their defense is the secondary, but when you're just so stubborn and you're not going to run the ball, they're going to keep, the safeties deep. No one's coming down. No one's biting on the play action. No one's going to be able to get open. And then you've got Caleb Williams and a little bit of Spencer Rattler coming in and throwing it into double coverage. And I don't know. I know that one deep ball when Rattler came in, I know that was pass interference. I don't know why it wasn't called. But it was bizarre how Lincoln and Riley wouldn't just start running the ball. And the offensive line, they were blocking. The blocking was great. They got Caleb Williams and Rattler maybe a couple times, but for the most part, the offensive line was holding up for 5 or 6 seconds, but no one could get open because obviously they were just taking deep shots the entire time. And even if you do want to keep passing, I don't understand why we're not doing, shallow crossing routes, quick passes, roll the quarterback out, get him in rhythm. I just don't know. This whole concept of going for the home run ball every single time just was bizarre. And then even if you would have done that all the first half, why not make some adjustments at the second half and come out and commit to the run and just wear them down? I don't know. It was really bizarre. And Caleb Williams didn't look comfortable back there at all. And I don't know what it was. And I don't know if it was the layoff or if they look like deer in headlights for the most part. And I just don't know. And that's why it's so hard. Why Nick Saban is so good, because he can motivate his team and get them ready for every single game, every single week. I just don't know why the team just didn't look ready for a top 15 matchup this weekend. I don't understand how you don't have enough motivation to go out and play. And now what are you going to, yeah, we can still win the Big 12 championship, but this team had national championship aspirations before the season even started. And it just most likely isn't going to happen now.
Yeah, it is frustrating. And in regards to like the stubbornness of trying to go for the deep shot every time, it seems to be a new thing this year. I don't remember ever with Caleb or with Jalen or Kyler or Baker. There was this constant drive to just throw the ball down the field. Obviously, we did often, but with Jalen, it was definitely a run first offense. Whether it was the running back and Ramondre or Jalen himself running the ball, the the focus was getting the ball in a runner's hand, and then we'd play off play action similar with Kyler and Baker. And our greatest wide receivers, like CD, he always I feel like if he wasn't running short routes, those short shallow crossing routes, and just putting it in his own hands, he wasn't really ever taking off down the field like we're trying to see Mike Woods and Marvin Mims and Mario Williams tried to do every game this year. Like I'm not sure what it is that's changed in the scheme. Maybe he thinks just these two quarterbacks have probably the best arm he's had, so he wants to take advantage of it. But that's just not the case. And then Twitter. I mean, I went on Twitter right after the game because I just wanted to see people's reactions, and everyone wants to blame someone on the coaching staff, whether it's a position coach, Grinch, or Lincoln. But the one that really is throwing me off is people trying to blame the um, strength and conditioning coach, Benny Wiley, like that. Benny Wiley's job is to get them ready physically for the game. Motivation, sure, he can help out with that, but just like every win should be on Lincoln's record and accredited to him, this loss is definitely on Lincoln Riley. And whatever happened with, again, being prepared, preparing the offense, motivating, and going to Rattler at that point in the game, sure, like, the commentators were talking about Caleb's hand for a good like 6 minutes, but that wasn't the problem. Caleb not being able to throw the ball wasn't the problem because the ball was still coming off his hand well. I'm sure it hurt, but it's not like the ball was just missing hard. So I completely disagree with him bringing in Spencer, because now it just creates more media attention when it's not necessary. And at the end of the day, you already moved off the guy. Like, yes, he's very talented and he could help out if we're ever in a situation where Caleb is hurt and can't come back in. But if the guy can still play, just let him take the reps. Like, what were we going to lose? We were already losing the game. Best case scenario, he could have led a good drive like he did when he got brought back in when it was too little too late.
Yeah. I mean, and talking about that stubbornness about passing the ball and passing it deep, I can live with stubbornness about running the ball, because even if it's not working in the first quarter, if you keep going and going and going, by the late third quarter and in the fourth quarter, it will work. And I just don't know what the deal is with the whole concept of abandoning the run immediately. And it wasn't like it was a high scoring game. We were behind. And then whenever we needed to start throwing the ball towards the end of the game, there was no threat of any rushing or anything like that. So nothing ever even changed for Baylor whenever we were forced to be passing. It was like the whole game. But I mean, some credit has to go to Baylor and their defense, because Dave Aranda, he has Lincoln's number. He's 3-0. I mean, I know you counting LSU's the semifinals, but he just him and the defensive coordinator, they were showing one thing and flipping to another like the NFL defenses, and for whatever reason they just couldn't figure it out, and they just got out coached, I think, at the end of the day. And it's not because they have better players at Baylor. It's just literally coaching. That's all it came down to. And I
Yeah.
mean, 260 yards of total offense, and probably, what was it, about 70, 80 yards came on that last drive. I mean, they had like less than 200 yards of total offense all game.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you do that. And you have 78 rushing yards in the whole game. 78. And I don't know, like you brought it up, like early in the season, we were having these issues, and it was because we weren't able to rush the ball, because we weren't opening holes, and Kennedy Brooks was coming back, and then all of a sudden handed it off multiple times, and Brooks was gashing them left and right, and it was working. And then all of a sudden you go in the bye week, and then they come back, and it's the same thing. I don't think it's so much on the players. I think it's just on the coaching. I don't know the game plan. I don't know if that means Lincoln needs some sort of another assistant to help him advise, or, I know he wants to be the offensive coordinator and he should be, but it's just sometimes it's just I get being stubborn, but you just got to adjust. And the whole mid-game adjustments, it just didn't seem like anything happened on both sides of the ball. And that's the difference of great coaching, is being able to see what the opposer's doing and then go into halftime, make your changes and adjust, or even before halftime. Just figure it out and start doing something different. It just isn't working.
Yeah, I think running the ball. I mean, that's just the biggest adjustment at this point. Lincoln needs to see, like, the way that teams are challenging his offense is because they're keeping him off the field for long enough that any momentum they could have started on one drive, you're off the field for like 7 or 8 minutes at a time. Like, these guys have cooled off so much, and yeah, maybe they can still bring in that mentality of being hyped up, but they've just been sitting there probably, and Caleb's probably throwing every couple minutes to keep his shoulder warm, and in this case his hand loose. But let's do the same thing to the other team. You saw Baylor was starting to get momentum on almost every single drive on offense. Our defense did as much as they could in the first half, and they kept trying the second half. They did. I mean, we held them to 27 points. If this offense could have done anything, then this would have been a much closer game and potentially an Oklahoma win. But the lack of running the ball, the lack of wanting to just kill clock and get Kennedy Brooks or Eric Gray and even Marcus Major, this guy's got fresh legs. Let him take some carries off Kennedy, because Kennedy's probably a little sore. He might, this is his last year, so I'm not really sure like if him and Lincoln have talked about Kennedy's aspirations to go into the NFL. I'm sure that's something Kennedy's worried about, and not getting too many hits. But let's focus on how can we get this team to, how can we get the defense to start biting on some play action? Because if you're only running the ball 12 times, they're going to know you're passing every single time. And the offensive line did their job. We can't put this on the offensive line. And one thing I did want to mention about them, I mean, they held up great when Caleb was playing quarterback, but you can tell that the defense and opposing defensive coaches know that when Spencer steps in, just let your linebacker come in and destroy his world, because he's just not as elusive. And that's not a fault of it, or like, that's not a big deal. Maybe somewhere else, maybe the NFL, maybe a different program would be a benefit to him. But whenever Spencer's in, you see linebackers just fly through that hole in the middle of the line, and Kennedy or Eric Gray can do as much as they can try as much as they want, but those guys are huge sometimes and are coming in with the head of steam, and Spencer just not quick enough to get by him. That's why whenever you see Caleb, he has like 7 or 8 seconds in the pocket until he has to move, because the linebackers are all in the back and it's just a 4-man rush.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what's interesting is, in the last 2 games, so obviously Baylor, and then before the bye was Texas Tech, Lincoln and the offense came in with the same game plan. If you remember, the Sooners didn't really run the ball against Texas Tech. They came in and they passed and it worked, and they just kept going and going and going to the well. And there's no point in adjusting, because whenever it's working, you go until they adjust, and then once they stop you, then you adjust. So it makes total sense why Kennedy Brooks only ran it like 8 times against Texas Tech. Coming to this game, the same mindset, and then 3 or 4 drives into it's not working. And at that point, like I just said, the defense was like, okay, well, we're not going to adjust until you adjust. And then they never adjusted, and then it was perfect for them. They played in all game, and I don't know. I mean, I just thought that was interesting, because Caleb Williams, we weren't squawking about it after that game, because he threw for 400 yards, and Texas Tech is not nearly as good as what Baylor is, and it showed the different level of competition between them. But positives, I think, like we said, the offensive line looked great. Brian Asamoah played well. Keyshawn Lawrence, or Key Lawrence, and DJ Graham, they got shook a little bit. Well, Key Lawrence got shook once and going in the end zone, and the other one was DJ Graham, got caught a little too far in, and quarterback Bohannon just overthrew him on that deep ball in the second quarter. But overall they played pretty well. I mean, can't ask for too much more other than maybe some adjustment in the second half with
Yeah.
the quarterback running.
Yeah, I agree. And it's something you've mentioned throughout the season. This team just can't play a whole game as a whole team and at a high level. It's either, I mean, before the first half, it seemed like the defense was coming up. It was like they were alternating series. Like, okay, the offense scores, the defense is going to let up. And then if the offense doesn't score, the defense will try a little harder. And then middle of the season, when we had all those injuries, the offense stepped up, and obviously the defense just wasn't doing their job. And then this game, their defense does everything that we asked them to do, and stopping the pass. I mean, Bohannon wasn't passing didn't pass much, but he didn't pass well either. We did end up getting a pick on a great play by Osimo and DTY, but then our offense can't do anything. So like they've got to put it all together. And again, I agree with you. It comes down to coaching, and it's not just one specific position coach or the um, strength and conditioning coach. It's all of them. And you have to start at the top with Lincoln Riley. If he doesn't communicate, if he's not motivating his staff and players, this team isn't going anywhere. But I do think this is a one-off thing. We lost, so we're a little bit more pessimistic, but I agree. The bright sides were the defense looked better. The offensive line has looked a lot better in this game, really showed. Hopefully Caleb's hand is all right, and won't affect him moving forward. It did seem like it was probably causing a little bit of a tingle every time he threw the ball, and probably didn't feel good running down his hand, but hopefully he can get that taken care of during the week and going against Iowa State. Let's pivot here to Oklahoma's playoffs hopes. A lot of people think we're out of it, and I told you this before we started recording. Somehow I'm more comfortable having one loss than I was when we were undefeated just a week ago, because it seemed like the world was over. And it was probably because of the disrespect of only being 8 as an undefeated team. But now we still have a chance. It's very slim, but there's a chance. We just need a lot of good things to happen over the next couple of weeks with other teams, mainly Oregon this weekend against Utah, which I think you looked it up. Utah right now is a favorite at home, so Oregon will have to travel to Utah. And Ohio State still has Michigan and Michigan State in the Big Ten title game potentially. Alabama's got Auburn, and if they lose to Auburn, as long as A&M stays undefeated, A&M would get the nod to get to the SEC championship. So there's things that could happen where Oklahoma's still in the running for the number 4 spot. At that point, it's just, can this team play to the standards of the committee has for a top 4 team and blowing out opponents? So this week Iowa State's always a hard game, but if we can put the nail on the coffin early to that team, then I think we're back in it. But if it's a close win, then I say we can go ahead and wave our playoff hopes goodbye.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there is a chance. I just feel like if you were OU was undefeated and they were ranked 8, what are they going to be able to do between Iowa State, who's now is what 6-4? You've got Oklahoma State, and then you might have to play again Oklahoma State or Baylor, whoever it comes down to. I just don't know if there's really the respect there, even if it came down to a one-loss conference champion Oklahoma against a one-loss Notre Dame against an undefeated Cincinnati. I just don't think the way that they've been ranking, the way that they've been looking at the Sooners, at that point they're going to give them the nod. I hope, but then again, I don't know. Do I really want to see the OU play against Georgia in the SEC or in the semifinals? I don't know. I mean, maybe they'll prove me wrong if they ever got to that point, but I mean, my confidence just isn't there. I mean, I think I'm confident that they can end up winning out and going 13-1, winning a New Year's Six bowl. against I don't know, in the Orange Bowl or whatever, Peach Bowl, wherever they're going to go. I forget which ones are the playoffs and which one aren't this year, but I just don't know. A lot of things have to go right for the Sooners, and they have to look really good over the last 3 weeks. And I just don't know if they can put it together. I mean, you're running out of time at this point. It's mid-November. It seems like in the last 5 years, this is when the OU whole as the team as a whole has looked great. Not having these eggs late in the season. It's normally early in the season. And I don't understand why it takes a loss for OU to put it all together. I just don't get it.
But we're gonna be coming up against an Iowa State team that has Matt Campbell, who is not scared of Oklahoma and might even hate us because and Lincoln Riley. It seems like every time you see that Matt Campbell on camera when he's playing Oklahoma, he's just screaming at the top of his lungs, either at the Oklahoma sideline, at the refs. He was yelling at Lincoln. What was it, a couple of years ago? Whenever a play went against him and Iowa State, but I mean it'll be a good game. I think both teams will have a lot to prove. Iowa State obviously had really high hopes at the beginning of the year. Everyone thought that it was going to be between Oklahoma and Iowa State for the Big 12 championship, and they've had a rough year. And Oklahoma just had one rough game. Like we can at least still be the Big 12 champion. At the worst, we'll be back to back Big 12 champions, which isn't awful. The only reason I would want to still hopefully get to the playoffs, even if we get boat raced again, that going to the playoffs, and Joel Klatt says it every time, being a playoff team means success. No one, unless you're like a diehard college football fan, like us and some of our viewers and people around the country that are super diehard into their school, then you don't really care about who's playing in a New Year's Six Bowl. The general fan cares about who's playing in the playoffs, and that will help a lot with recruiting. It doesn't matter if you lose by a lot. If you consistently make the playoffs like Clemson did before, they got a lot of recruits, and Alabama does the same thing. Like they don't win every year. Georgia's starting to do the same. So getting to the playoffs just means better recruiting ammo, I guess. But yeah, I don't think we would win in the playoff game, but it would just be nice.
I mean, I'll tell you what, if OU, wins the Big 12 championship and wins a New Year's Six Bowl and finishes 13-1, I think that's a little bit of a better situation than our friends down in Austin after this past weekend. So,
yeah,
there could be worse things going on right now. And we got to put it in perspective. We are a little spoiled. A lot of college football teams would wish to be what OU's program is like. And, we just want national championships, and other programs, a lot of other programs just wish they could win the conference and go to New Year's Six Bowls.
Yeah. So, and I think it's safe to say at this point, Sark has lost the race for Arch Manning and is just hoping to not lose his job after one season in Texas. Brandon brought it up last week, and again, we'll talk about it in another video, but there's a chance Sark is on the hot seat after just one season, and it's not a good look to be losing to Kansas. And I know we had a tough game against them, but we did lose, and they've lost twice in the last 5 years.
If there was one school that would fire their coach after one season, it would be Texas.
Yeah, and he's had decent recruiting so far, but yeah, they will get rid of the guy, and who knows who'll fill in. That's something that we'll have to look out for, because I think Grinch is starting to look for head coaching jobs, and it wouldn't surprise me if he at least gets interviewed by Texas, and hopefully he does not leave Oklahoma. Oklahoma just needs to throw head coaching money at him and give him the assistant head coaching name, so that he can add it to his resume. But let's keep him, and especially don't want him leaving for a Big 12, because he knows how to play against the Lincoln Riley offense. If anyone other than Aranda, Grinch would be the one to give Lincoln some problems.
Yep.
Do you have anything else to add before we wrap it up?
Nope, I think that's all I've got. I mean, we're we're gonna be all right. Just take care of Iowa State this weekend, and we'll see what happens.
100%. Yep. So thank you guys all for watching. If you made it this far, you're awesome. Make sure you hit that like button, hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell so you know when we're posting videos. You know, it's still championship November, so we're gonna be posting recaps, previews. Basketball started as soon as we start getting to conference play and getting in a better idea of what the team is. We'll start making more videos on the team. Porter Moses' inaugural season as a head coach at Oklahoma. So this season is going to be great for Oklahoma basketball. And then obviously signing day is exactly 1 month away from today, the day we're recording, November 14th. I believe the first day that kids can sign their national letter of intent is December 14th. So we will be keeping up with recruiting as much as we can. A lot of stuff has been happening with some of the recruits that Oklahoma is targeting. So we'll keep you up to date in upcoming videos. So make sure to turn on that notification bell so you know when those videos come out. And then leave a comment. Let us know what you think. Is Oklahoma out of the playoff race? Can they at least make it interesting at the end, or should we just hope that we can even make it to New Year's Six Bowl? How optimistic are you about this team? Let us know. Make sure to leave that comment. Other than that, thank you guys for watching. We appreciate it. We'll see you next time.